Welcome to Origin of Solutions, the ESCAP podcast where we share practical initiatives and policies shaping the future of Asia and the Pacific. I'm Sompot Supputhamongkhon. In this episode, we are talking about one of the defining demographic trends of our time, population aging. This shift will touch every family, every workplace, and every community. Countries are beginning to adapt their policies and systems from healthcare and caregiving to employment and social protection. Today, we're joined by three experts working on innovative approaches to aging and care. Please welcome Vanessa Steinmayer, Napaphat Satchanawakul from ESCAP Social Development Division, and Kimchoo from the Tsao Foundation in Singapore. Together, we explore how international cooperation, local leadership, and community-driven solutions can help countries turn demographic change into opportunity. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What first inspired you to contribute to this area of aging and care?
Well, my background is really in social work and counseling psychology. I was a clinician by practice, and subsequently I got into program design, program planning, program development, and eventually more focused on policy translation into practice. And I think that really caught my interest. Aging is such a complex issue that it requires multi-sectorial input.
I joined the UN more than 20 years ago. I'm an economist by training and always passionate about development issues. And I found social development particularly interesting because this affects the people. It affects all of us. And it affects all of our lives and well-being. At the beginning, I had no idea what population aging is about, but then diving into it, I realized how interesting it is for economists because it challenges many of our fundamental assumptions, how economies and societies work, and it challenges our fundamental assumption about the life course. We all learned that you learn as a child, then you go to university, and then you work, and at one point you stop working. Very linear. And with population aging, this has to change and is changing. Learning has to be lifelong, and you can work much longer than the often assumed 65 years. And this will change a lot. And also economies have to probably change their economic models and a lot of models of work.
I am a political scientist by training and a demographer by work I've done so far. I previously worked at the university and joined the UN a few years ago, but my work's focused on population aging, intergenerational issues, and social and population policy development.
So, one of the common questions we ask on every episode is, what solutions are you working on for the region?
We are working on solutions to support countries to adapt to demographic changes. And we should say we are not solving or changing the demographic changes. The solution is how to adapt.
To me, one of the solutions is really looking at how we can do policy translation into practice on the ground, taking into consideration the context that society is in and kind of process that we want to implement for this policy translation.
Framework with Indonesia Plan of Action on Aging, or what we call MIPA. And it can sound quite technical at first, but of course the MIPA can be the solutions to provide concrete national actions so that we can translate the priority directions to be there as a solution for member states to work on these issues.
Aging is something every family experiences, either with our parents, grandparents, or ourselves. So, why is population aging such an important issue for Asia and the Pacific, and what makes it different from other regions of the world?
Asia Pacific is very fascinating because it covers such a wide area, but it has such diverse cultures, landscape, political, socio-economic context. When you look at aging in Asia Pacific, you are really looking at so many different subsets because the context is so different.
Population is not just about numbers, but it's one of the defining transformation changes of our time. It's reshaping the entire landscape in terms of how we live and how we continue our life for the next generations to come. This year in 2025, the Asia Pacific region homes to about 500 million older persons, those who are 60 plus. But in the next 25 years, by 2050, the number is projected to nearly double, reaching close to 1 billion older person. So that means almost 1 in 5 people in our region will be an older persons. The speed and scale Asia Pacific is very unique compared to other countries in the West who might have faced the issues of population aging before. Many countries in our region are aging much faster and are often at much lower income levels than developed countries. This is why many governments in the region have less time and fewer resources to adapt the resource for coping with the implications of population aging, which comes with opportunities and challenges.
Also, what is quite different in Asia and the Pacific is the speed of aging comes in parallel with economic development. For example, countries in Europe already had their pension systems in place before they started aging. So a lot of systems were already in place. In Asia and the Pacific, it's coming all of a sudden. Some countries are aging and there's actually a very limited pension coverage. It's only there for the formal sector and it might cover in many countries only 5% of the population. Because economic growth was so rapid and it came in line with all the demographic developments at the same time, there's still a very large informal sector, which is very difficult to cover by pension systems and social protection. So it comes all at the same time, and therefore the solutions have to come very rapidly.
International agreements like the Merit Plan of Action, how do they actually translate into real changes that affect older people and their families in our region?
The MIPA is a very comprehensive and a holistic document. It maps out the outcome that we all want to see where population aging is concerned. And so when to translate the MIP into actions on the ground, you need to take the context of that society, that community, or that country into consideration. And also to look into what would be that process of change for that particular country. And that's why it's very interesting and it's really unique for each country, each community, because all the context where they are is different, right?
International Plan of Action on Aging is an action plan to build societies for all ages. So it's not only about older persons, it also recommends countries to start policies early, and preparing for aging starts early. So it's actually also about younger people. Also, it takes a new approach. It sees older persons as agents of development and rights holders, not only as recipients of care. So it moves from a charity approach to older persons, but now it sees older persons as actors and provides recommendations how to include older persons in societies, promoting volunteer work of older persons, also promoting older persons in the labor force. And one point that I think changed the situation of many older persons in some countries that have it, that social pensions. Several countries, including Thailand, have a social pension. People receive a monthly amount, and although this is low and maybe doesn't provide income security, but the reports I hear, it makes them very proud to receive an income, and it's a little amount. They are able to decide to use it freely and don't always have to ask their children who do support them. So I think this is something which is part of the Madrid International Plan of Action, which changes the lives of many older persons. Also, what I see that many countries celebrate International Day of Older Persons, I think also gives pride to people to feel appreciated and enhances their dignity.
Just to emphasize that the MIPA adopted in 2002, it has been the only global guiding document on the issues regarding aging. So the MIPA as its heart, it's really about the dignity, about the rights and inclusion for older person. It aims to build the society for all ages. Let me share an example from our PDR. We have been working with the government of Lao PDR since 2019. So when we first started engaging with the government, their aging was not yet seen as a pressing issue because the country was still considered very young and the focus was mostly on the youth bulge. But the government had very good foresight. They approached us early and asking for support to develop a legal framework for older persons, which is called a decree on older persons. So that is why we came there and tried to support them. So now, through the continuous engagement, the policy reviews, the technical consultations, and stakeholder dialogues we have had, I think now they have come up with some policy documents. Now the national strategy and action plan, which will be the next step for Lao PDR. This is something that we could translate the MIPA into practice and into national concrete action as well.
The Maldives already had a policy on aging before, but then after the last regional review of the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging in 2022, they realized that it needs to be aligned with the outcome document of the most recent MIPA review because there are new issues include, for example, technology is an important issue which has changed, and also to add more on lifelong learning. So they requested ESCAP to support in revising the policy. So they actually updated the policy, which I think is an inspiring example because sometimes policies are made and that's it. And then they also had a corresponding action plan. And after the policy revision, now the action plan was revised. Maldives, as a small island state with many remote atolls, the local government units have an important role in implementation because also the issues are very specific there and very different in the capital, which is very crowded, while in the remote islands, it's often the opposite, that the younger generation is missing. And I was told in some atolls, 50% of the population are older people. They do regular consultations actually with older people in the island. They gather them in a public place, which is sometimes the beach in Maldives, and ask what are their issues, ask them for inputs, and seek to provide services and also involve older person. That's a very inspiring approach, also to have these different stages from the policy development to the development of an action plan and then also to monitoring.
I just want to add on to what Vanessa was saying about the Maldives because I was part of the ESCAP team that worked on that project. I'm really impressed that willingness, that openness to not just revise that policy, but to really set up an action plan and try and implement it and having consultations with the stakeholders in their community. That's very impressive because they're actually very actively driving into a process to make that policy, to translate that policy into programs and actions on the ground.
We have a broad base of listeners from policymakers to business owners and grassroots communities, or even just people who care for their family members. If you could just give one piece of advice to our listeners about preparing for an aging society, what would it be?
Many years ago, I came across this book, and the title of the book is really intriguing. The title of the book is What Are Old People For? And I thought that whether as individuals, as communities, as societies, if we can answer that question, I think we would know what we need to do with regard to policy development, policy translation, practices, programs on the ground. How do we interact, engage with our older persons in our lives, or even perhaps as an older person ourselves, what do we need to do? I think if we have answers to that question, we would know what to do.
Maybe we start early, prioritize some issues, and of course, start it together. Start early means investing now in things that will benefit people throughout their life course. Healthy aging, digital inclusion, lifelong learning, accessible infrastructure. The earlier a country invests, the better prepared its people will be when they grow older. Of course, a country cannot do everything at a time, so they should prioritize maybe starting with the healthcare first, maybe starting with the pension first. That is something that the country should know themselves and try to prioritize them. Start together means recognizing that preparing for population aging is not just a government responsibility. It's something that involves families, communities, employers, civil society, everyone. And of course, it's about the intergenerational solidarity as well. How young and old can support and learn from each other more and more. We are living now, right, in the societies where more multiple age cohorts coexist than ever before. Multi-generational workplace and communities are now the norm already. So fostering this kind of solidarity across generation is just not just a nice idea anymore. It is very essential for building social cohesion, resilience, and also for sustainable development.
Just to put it punchy as a piece of advice to policymakers and maybe others, don't panic. When they hear aging, they often think it's a problem, and older people are seen as a problem, and then they jump to solutions, and this is what they think returning the trend. So we need more children now. No, don't panic. Aging is not a problem. We just need to adjust. Aging can be a solution, and it's an opportunity. The same people can work longer, and we can use their skills and knowledge for a longer time. And what might be outdated, help them to stay pressed and keep them being skilled. That's a great thing. You don't always have to train new people. See it from that way. Yes, make sure people stay healthy. And this staying healthy starts early. It doesn't help to have an unhealthy life and start at 70 to eat healthy food, for example. So as my colleague said, start early and adapt. And maybe societies will be more prosperous. We can live all happily together, hopefully.
If you are a younger person and you meet an older person, don't just quickly think that this is just an older person. Try to get to know that older person as a person. And I think you will discover many interesting and wonderful things about that person that you can connect with as well.
Aging is actually a success story. It's not a crisis at all. It reflects the improvement, the better healthcare, improved living conditions. That is why we have longer lives. So of course there will be challenges and opportunity. Just want to emphasize that aging, it's everyone's story. Everyone is aging.
Wonderful. Very nice ending over here. So that's all for today's episode of A Region of Solutions. A big thank you to our guests for sharing the experience with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay focused, stay engaged, and be part of the solution for our region.